Here's something strange about you. You love yourself more than anyone else on this planet. You would protect yourself, feed yourself, fight for yourself. You are the most important person in your own life. But here's what's strange. You trust other people's opinions of you more than your own. Am I good enough? You don't answer that. You wait for them to answer it. Am I smart, attractive, worthy? You hand the verdict to strangers, even people you don't respect. Think about that. You would sacrifice almost anything for your own well-being, but you won't sacrifice 5 seconds of comfort for your own authenticity. You'd rearrange your entire life to protect yourself, but you won't rearrange a single sentence to express what you actually think. Marcus Aurelius noticed this 2,000 years ago. We love ourselves most, yet we value others' opinions more. This is the great contradiction of human nature. If you love yourself so much, why have you given the remote control of your self-worth to everyone except yourself? The answer is older than you think, older than language itself. Chapter 1. The Ancient Software. You inherited a nervous system built for a world that no longer exists. Picture the environment your brain was designed for. Small bands of humans. Everyone knew everyone. Resources shared. Protection mutual. In that setup, being pushed out wasn't a social problem. It was a survival crisis. No group meant no food, no safety, no future. So, your brain developed an alarm system. It learned to treat social rejection as an emergency, because for most of human history, it was. And here's the catch. That programming never got updated. Your nervous system still treats a negative comment like a predator sighting. It treats being unfollowed like being cast out. Your body can't distinguish between the group abandoned me and someone didn't like my post. Same alarm. Completely different situation. This is why approval feels so urgent, so physical. That's not weakness. Chapter 2. The Download Years. Before age 7, you weren't really thinking. You were absorbing. Young children don't evaluate what they're told. They can't. The part of the brain that questions and pushes back isn't developed yet. So for 7 years, you accepted beliefs without any filter. You didn't learn them, you downloaded them. Consider what that means. You had the critical thinking capacity of a golden retriever. Very trusting, very absorbent. Whatever your parents believed, you believed. Not because it was true, but because you had no way to question it. And here's what makes this significant. Those downloads didn't disappear when you grew up. They became the invisible operating system running your adult life. The voice that says you're not good enough? It probably learned your mother's tone before you could form sentences. The beliefs about what you should want, who you should be, absorbed before you could consent. You weren't taught what to think. You were taught to accept without questioning. So here's the real question. The beliefs you're defending right now, are they yours? Or hand-me-downs you've never examined? Chapter 3. The Dichotomy. 2,000 years ago, a man born into slavery figured out freedom. His name was Epictetus, owned by another person, leg deliberately broken, possessing nothing. By every external measure, powerless. Yet people described him as one of the freest humans they'd ever encountered. His insight was simple. He divided everything into 2 categories, what you can control and what you can't. Your reputation? Not yours. Their opinion of you? Not yours. Whether they approve? Not yours. You can influence these things, but you cannot determine them. Spending your life trying to control what you can't is suffering. So, what's yours? Your effort, your response, your attention, your integrity. That's it. The complete list. And that is freedom. Not controlling outcomes, but releasing your grip on them. Not making everyone approve, but becoming someone whose worth doesn't require their approval. Epictetus had less external freedom than you in every way, except the one that counts. He kept his attention on what was his, stopped giving it to what wasn't. Philosophy gives you the map. Now, find where you are on it. Chapter 4. The Borrowed Self. There are 2 ways to live. Believe you shape your own life, that your choices determine where you end up. Or believe life happens to you, that external forces are in charge. People who feel in control experience less anxiety and better mental health. People who feel controlled by external forces, who wait for permission and validation, suffer more. Now here's the uncomfortable part. If your self-worth depends on whether they approve, you've handed your sense of control to them. You've made your inner state dependent on their outer reaction. Albert Ellis called this the opposite of unconditional self-acceptance. You're accepting yourself, but only when conditions are met, only when they approve, only when you succeed. Approval on those terms isn't self-worth. It's a loan with compound interest. The more you take, the more you owe. Real self-worth comes from one source, you, living by your own standards. But there's a modern force making this harder than ever. Chapter 5. The Comparison Trap. Humans are wired to compare themselves to others. It's not a choice. It's how we measure ourselves, by looking sideways. For thousands of years, this worked fine. You compared yourself to your village, your neighbors, a manageable pool. Then came the internet. Here's what happened. You used to measure yourself against 100 people. Now you measure against millions, not their reality, but their performance. You're not comparing yourself to people. You're comparing yourself to a highlight reel edited by insecurity. And it's wearing you down. People who spend hours scrolling tend to feel worse, not better. Not because screens are evil, but because you're drinking salt water for thirst. The more you drink, the thirstier you get. But here's the shift. Comparison isn't the enemy. Unconscious comparison is. When you catch yourself measuring, ask, am I comparing to a real person or a performance? Whose standards, mine or theirs? Awareness interrupts the loop, but there's another loop, one inside your own head. Join our YouTube membership and get exclusive perks like early access to scripts, input on future topics about productivity, and connect with a like-minded community that gets it. Click join below and let's build your easier, more intentional life together. Chapter 6. The Inner Bodyguard. There's a voice in your head that criticizes everything you do. You know the one. It tells you you're not ready, not good enough, that they'll reject you. It replays your failures at 3 a.m., predicts humiliation before you've started. Most people treat this voice as the enemy. They fight it, try to silence it, feel broken because it exists. But here's what shifts everything. That voice isn't trying to destroy you. It's trying to protect you. Your inner critic is a bodyguard. It learned early that criticism was coming. So it decided to criticize you first. If it beats you up before they do, maybe it can prepare you, maybe soften the blow. The problem isn't that the bodyguard exists. The problem is it doesn't know the danger has passed. You're not 7 anymore. You can handle disapproval now. But the bodyguard never got the update. So what do? You don't fire the bodyguard. You thank it. Then, gently, show it the threat is over. Fighting the critic strengthens it. Curiosity disarms it. But there's something even harder than befriending your critic. Chapter 7. The Vulnerability Paradox. Vulnerability feels like exposure. Showing up before you know the outcome. Speaking before you've rehearsed. Admitting you don't know. You were wrong. You're struggling. Everything in you wants to run. We've been conditioned to believe vulnerability is a crack in the armor. That showing your real self is handing ammunition to people who might use it. But the opposite turns out to be true. People who feel truly worthy don't avoid vulnerability. They move toward it. Not because it's comfortable, because they recognize courage requires it. Think about anything courageous you've done. Telling someone how you felt. Starting before you were ready. None of it was certain. All required showing up before you knew how it would land. That's vulnerability. And that's courage. Inseparable. Here's the reframe. The opposite of people-pleasing isn't becoming cold. The opposite is being honest. Honest about what you want, what you don't, who you are, even when it creates friction. Belonging comes from being seen. If you hide yourself to be accepted, you're auditioning, not belonging. And there are parts of you that have been hiding for a very long time. Chapter 8. The Shadow Self. Carl Jung described something he called the shadow. The shadow is every part of yourself you've rejected or denied. The emotions you were told not to feel. The desires you learned were unacceptable. When someone said, "Don't be so loud," part of you went underground. When you learned certain sides were welcomed and others weren't, you split yourself. But here's what Jung understood. The shadow doesn't disappear when you reject it. It runs your life from backstage. The parts you've disowned don't leave. They influence you from hiding. Sabotage your relationships. They show up as what you hate in others, because often, What you despise out there is what you've buried in here. Jung put it bluntly. You don't grow by imagining yourself as pure light. You grow by bringing what's hidden into view. The shadow doesn't want to hurt you. It wants to be acknowledged. It wants to come back. The parts you abandoned to be accepted, still waiting. But knowing this isn't enough. You need something to do. Chapter 9. The Mirror Practice. Everything I've said so far is useless without this part. Understanding doesn't create change. Insight doesn't equal freedom. You can agree with every idea and still wake up tomorrow seeking approval. Knowing better rarely means doing better. So here's what you actually do. David Goggins calls it the accountability mirror. Every morning, look at yourself. Truly look. And tell yourself the truth. Not affirmations. Truth. Where are you falling short? What are you avoiding? What would you do if you stopped caring what they think? The mirror doesn't lie. Neither should you. The second practice is first principles questioning. When you notice a belief, ask, do I hold this because I've examined it, or because it was handed to me? Whose voice is this? Mine? Or programming from before I could push back? Most beliefs won't survive honest questioning. That's not a problem. That's the process. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about dropping everything that isn't you. One more piece, the deepest one. Chapter 10. The Mortality Key. You're going to die. Not comfortable to hear. But thinker Irvin Yalom explored what happens when people face this and noticed something unexpected. Those who confront their mortality don't fall into despair. They wake up. Here's why. Most things you worry about, what they think, whether they approve, only matter if you pretend you have unlimited time. If you have infinite years, sure, spend them seeking validation. Spend decades living someone else's script. Spend your one shot performing for people who aren't watching that closely. But when you absorb that this ends, something clarifies. You're not afraid of dying. You're afraid of dying without ever having lived as yourself. Yalom called it the awakening experience, recognizing not just that you exist, but that someday you won't. And the question flips. No longer, what will they think? What will I have done with the time I was given? Facing mortality doesn't drain life of meaning. It drains approval-seeking of meaning. You have one life. You're burning it worried about opinions of people, also running out of time. One final piece. And we started with a contradiction. You love yourself more than anyone, but trust their opinion more than your own. Now you understand why. But there's one last insight, the one that actually opens the door. Your entire life, you've believed you are conditioned, that somewhere underneath there's a real you trapped under programming. Your job is to dig it out. But here's the liberation. There is no you who is conditioned. There is only conditioning. And conditioning can be seen. When you stop identifying as the patterns and start watching them, they lose their grip. Not because you fight them, but because you're no longer fused with them. The observer is not the thing observed. What gets seen clearly starts to dissolve. You don't need to find yourself. You need to stop abandoning yourself. You don't need permission to be who you are. You only needed to stop asking. Freedom was never about adding something. It was always about seeing what was never true. And hey, if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. Also, let me know your thoughts on what I just shared. Oh, and there's more. I've just started a Patreon to help support these videos and connect with you more directly. Check out the link in the description if you'd like to join.